All right, guys. Hi, welcome. Good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Kimi Katiti, and today I am joined by Blaine Andrews from Criticless. Blaine, would you care to introduce yourself to the folks today?
Yeah. My name is Blaine Andrews. Like she said, I am the CEO. I guess that's what they call me, the founder, creator, whatever of Criticless. Easiest way to remember that is just critic and then less attached onto the end of it. So, criticless.com. We're an app, a website, and yeah, I've started this project about a little over a year ago, and we just went live. It's a entertainment social reviewing platform. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, but the way I tell everybody is to think Rotten Tomatoes, but minus the critics, and then
Right.
mix it with a Instagram or Twitter functionality wise.
Okay, so I want to go straight into the Tomatoes bit
Yeah,
because I've always thought like critics have a important role in, in culture, in art, and you have an opposing opinion in that, or at least to
sure.
a degree. What is your beef with Rotten Tomatoes? I'm just gonna
Yeah.
ask it
Yeah.
straight up like that.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I have plenty of beef with Rotten Tomatoes. I think it is an extremely broken, dated system that just doesn't really work anymore. We're in
Mhm.
an age where even if I mean, I think that there was a time when critics definitely had a place when society was much different, when we were much less connected. I remember being a kid and being a big movie buff and into video games and that sort of thing. And the first thing I
Right.
would do is, when I'd get like a paper or whatever, I'd go to see what they reviewed really well and like maybe what my parents would let me check out, or whatever
Mhm.
the case may be. But now we're at a state where we're so connected and everybody can know everyone's opinions on everything in 20 seconds flat. Like,
Mhm.
and then on top of that, we have influencers or content creators, and so a lot of people know the personalities, the thought processes, the opinions of content creators far more than you're going to know what a random critic from ABC or CBS or whoever thinks about something, right? and
Right.
and and that is all aside from the fact that these critics work for these big networks that are connected to these large institutions. And even, I don't know if you saw just recently, an article came out about Rotten Tomatoes, and it was a bit of a
Oh.
bombshell. Yeah, and it was big, and no one heard about it.
Oh no. Okay,
Yeah,
wait. Do you mind like breaking down what this
sure.
article talks about?
Yeah, basically, the long and short of it was that it came out that critics were getting paid for their reviews. And
Ooh.
yeah, specifically on Rotten Tomatoes. And so what was
Mhm.
happening was a marketing firm would go over to these critics that they knew that were on Rotten Tomatoes, and they would say, "Look," and it was just for 50 bucks too, which is kind of crazy. But they're just like, "Yo, I'll throw you 50 bucks. You go review this movie." All right? And we're not saying that you have to say it's good or bad, but if you do have a bad opinion on it, what we're going to do is if you want, like, it might be a good idea to just hide this bad review on like another outlet or another platform that's not really connected to you, so that it doesn't register on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
wild. And was
Yeah.
this ad money? Was this like where were
Yeah.
they getting the money from it?
It was ad
Okay.
money. And so
That's
basically,
crazy.
yeah, they've realized the weight that Rotten Tomatoes could throw around. And the fact of how broken Rotten Tomatoes is, if you look at that audience score, there are plenty of times where they will say, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. And then you look and it's been reviewed by literally 4 or 5 critics. No
Right.
joke.
Yes.
Uh, ha-
Absolutely.
Like, how does that speak for the millions of people watching these movies?
Exactly. Yeah.
It,
And
it just
even
doesn't
just
make any sense.
the placement of the critics review before the audience score
Yeah,
to me is it's a little bit suspicious.
totally.
And oftentimes I get this sense that there's almost like the green rotten on the critics side,
Right.
and most times the audience score tends to be more positive. Is this an
Regularly.
indication of bias, or is this an actual reflection that maybe the audience knows less than the critics? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that it is. My personal opinion is that a lot of it is bias, and I
Yeah.
think that we have a lot of hive mentality within the critic sphere, and a lot of political thought, and a lot of, even just a simple example would be, there's a new show out called The Continental, and it's a
Yes.
John Wick spinoff. And if you look at that, it's been getting bombed by critics, but they love every John Wick movie. And I'm like, this is kind of odd because I really like the show. I thought it was really well done, right? You
Yeah.
look, and almost every single review is bashing the fact that Mel Gibson is in the show. And it is like
Wow.
one of the opening lines of multiple reviews, that sort of thing. And it's just like, okay, so you guys bombed this because you hate Mel Gibson. Like,
Right.
it's not because this is a bad show. You just would prefer that people don't see it so that you're not giving your money to Mel Gibson, right? Like,
Wow.
and
So
people who
it's
platform him.
That's crazy. It's like almost completely upside down.
Yeah,
Cuz a review is about a genuine experience. Like imagine if this was for like an Amazon product and
right,
you had it the behind the scenes just haywire of people just paying to say this plastic product is actually made out of titanium. It's
right.
kind of the same mess.
Yeah,
CC says over here, yeah, a lot of mainstream media and critics have a lot of bias and established belief system and lens by which they assess cinema and televised art through. Absolutely.
totally.
And I'm looking forward to the Continental as well. I haven't seen
Yeah,
it yet,
it's good.
but it sounds like it's great. So I'm curious for you, at what point did you decide, okay, I see the mess with Rotten Tomatoes and I want to do something about it? What was that
Right.
journey like?
So really, like, if you really get down to it, my initial point was probably about 10 years ago. But the problem is that, see, I'm not a tech guy. I'm I'm about as blue collar as they come, honestly. Like, I've ran a trucking company, I've ran a landscaping company, I, had other businesses of my own, but not in tech, and I didn't know it. So if you're getting into these industries, it's almost impossible without just the money, the capital that's there. And so I wanted to make it about 10 years ago, and I just couldn't. And I've been driving my wife insane for about 10 straight years. And we finally ended up in a scenario which was very unfortunate for us, but we had a death in the family. But we ended
Oh.
up, it was just, it was very chaotic and it was rough, but it was one of these scenarios where we saw the bright side of it and we had to, the best we could. And we're like, okay, well, look, we can sell our own home and we can take the
Mhm.
money from our home, move into this one that we inherited, and invest in something to help change culture. Because that was my biggest thing. Is I've been fine-tuned on culture for my whole life, and the whole politics is downstream from culture, and I saw this happening years and years ago. And I just started looking at entertainment as a whole, and I started to watch it morph and change, and started to watch these institutions and these even some of these creators within Hollywood and whatnot start to attack even just the fan bases of people that were just passionate about things.
Mhm.
And I was like, people need a voice where they can go and they can talk about these things, and it's a safe place, of a free speech platform where they're not going to get canceled out of oblivion and kicked off the platform, or whatever the case may be. And
Mhm.
so basically about a year ago when all this happened, I was like, let's do it. Talked with my wife, she gave me the go ahead, and we
Right.
dove in and just invested, have been investing basically all that we had to build this. And so now we're at this
Yeah.
point where I'm just relying on the people to hope that this is a need that people see as much as I do. And I think a lot of people do want to change culture and want to make a difference. And I think the conversations around entertainment is a perfect place to start.
That's awesome. And that's incredible how it kind of came from, something adverse occurring and then you kind
Right.
of rising up from that. That's amazing. Do
Right.
you mind letting us know what state you're in, where you're
Yeah.
located?
Yeah, we're out of North Carolina. I'm
Wow.
North Carolina born and raised. That's another thing. There's not a lot of tech around here.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
but we didn't want to stay. I didn't want to leave it. I actually found a team that was also East Coast. So my team's out of Nashville. So they're
Mhm.
fairly close, not super far. It's like 7 hours or so. But
Gotcha.
I found the best team possible, and I wanted to keep the business here. And I think it's a good state. And there's a reason everybody's coming here, I guess. So
That's awesome. That's good to hear. I have a friend who's actually moving
oh,
to
awesome.
North Carolina, so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um and so I'm curious, just diving back into the word critic, because your platform is
Yeah.
called Criticless.
Mhm.
What, at least traditionally, because now we kind of have, at least we both agree that that term is now hijacked.
Right.
What historically was the definition of a critic? What were the qualifications to become a critic? Like, what was that line you cross that you say, I am able to provide culture with a good lens on art?
Right. Yeah. And that, man, that's a really good question, because it's one of those things where initially a critic was was individuals that were schooled and trained in certain
Mm,
arts, and they tended to have a focus in that. And they were trusted sources, and I mean, I think there was a time when we had a lot larger trust in media. Now, whether we should have had that trust or not, I don't know. But typically they were connected to some sort of outlet, and we just trusted that their opinions were solid, and they
Yeah.
earned a reputation because they weren't a dime a dozen either, right? You didn't
Mhm.
have 100 different blog sites and these random pop-up outlets and whatnot that all decided to start having their own critic. And I think over time, for me at least, I saw the value decreasing in these people.
Yeah.
And more than anything, also, it's like if you look at our schools and our public institutions, as far as our colleges and state schools and whatnot, they are very much gearing to a single thought. It's not allowing for a
Oof.
lot of flexibility and freedom. And when you see that, I think that it's kind of separated people, and now we have these two separate groups of this hyper educated group of individuals that are very much disconnected from just the regular folks.
Do you think modern criticism is now, like you said, people are highly educated, right? So
Right.
you have people with knowledge of film theory, but that gets mixed in with ideology, and
Yeah.
it's almost like let's take something specific that I learned in college, which was like the male gaze.
Right.
You have people who are, and I agree with that. I think we went through like what was it, Vertigo? By
Hmm.
Hitchcock, and talking about the male gaze in like that movie and other
Right.
movies of old. But it was from that point onwards, and yes, I agree. Like there are some occurrences of like bias and whatever, but then you build off of that, where film kind of becomes enmeshed with a one-sided view of ideology, and it's almost
Hmm.
like today it's almost impossible to separate that. And so right now you have a lot of conflict about, say, for example, representation and diversity and that importance in film. So do you think that hyper knowledge can be used for good? Do you think there is a possibility to be a sort of better critic rather than being criticless entirely?
Right. I think that there is definitely that's a good thought, and I think that there can be a place for that. I think right now that's not happening a lot within that sphere, but I think that it can. We've just, man, I'm just really we've evolved in our thinking and where our
Hmm.
mindset is currently, and I think that there are definitely some really good nuggets and some really good thoughts that come out of the modern progressive movement. But the problem is that some of it just gets over exacerbated, right?
Yeah.
And it's like with how you're talking about, like, just with DEI in general, like, when you look at that and you look at the fact that now they're saying that films, for example, it's like, okay, well, the only way that you can win an award is if you have X
Right.
number of people of this gender, X number of people of this race, whatever. And we're talking about art here, or at least that was how we used to view entertainment and movies and TV. But
Hmm.
if you're looking at it through that lens, it's like, if you're controlling people to that finite degree, what kind of products are you going to get where they can't bring on, potentially at times, the people that they need to bring on that are right for the job?
Exactly.
And I think that there's definitely a danger in that. Now, and I really honestly think that if we were to pull back some, where it's like, it's that pendulum swing. We've gone so
Yeah.
far to one side, and it's so extreme. But
Hmm.
if we were to just pull back a little bit and just watch what happened organically, I think now that we've called some of the issues to light, some of the problems that were happening in these industries, and I mean, you look at even just like the was it Jeffrey Weinstein, or not Jeffrey Weinstein? That's I mixed
Um,
up.
Epstein or Weinstein?
Not Epstein,
Epstein?
Weinstein. No,
Weinstein.
well,
Okay.
of the Weinstein stuff within Hollywood, right? And all the
Yeah.
toxic stuff that was going on there. Even that, it's like, and like you were talking about with the male gaze, it's like, those sort of things have been addressed now. We're looking at them, and I think that we can see it in a much more clear light, and the public has a lot closer eye on it now. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of that stuff would not be happening quite the way that it was before.
Right.
But the problem is too is that Hollywood as a whole just seems to be a bit rotten. um,
Yeah.
and I think that we have a lot of space right now for growth for independent creators and outside
Hmm.
money, outside of Hollywood, to maybe meld together all the things that we've learned and create something new.
Yeah. And I okay, going to Criticless now, the platform
Yeah,
itself. Um I had the chance to, and by the way, thank you for introducing me to this platform as a whole.
yeah,
By the way, this is not a sponsored live stream. We just organically connected through Instagram,
right.
and I loved what you were doing. I got a chance to see a bit of Criticless on Instagram,
Yeah,
and then I joined the platform officially a couple days ago and had a chance to kind of go through it and read the reviews. But I have a question. Are you
yeah.
familiar with Animal Farm by George Orwell?
Yeah, yeah, I know it now. I'm not hyper versed in it, but I know of it. My
Okay.
conversation involving it would probably be pretty limited, but
Gotcha, gotcha. Do you worry that your platform, Criticless, might turn into a sort of Animal Farm scenario where there organically rises like a leadership tier that
right.
sort of, takes the role of the Tomatoes critic role?
Right, right, and, yeah, it kind of eats itself a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, it is a bit of a worry, and we've talked about that a lot, and I think that it potentially could be an issue in the far future, but
Yeah.
I being one of the big things was that even though we have content creators on the platform and we have content creator accounts and verified accounts and things like that, one of the big things that I wanted to focus on was that every opinion was weighted on the same scale. And I think that
Mhm.
that's another issue with Rotten Tomatoes where they've got, the critics and the general audience and it's like these two separate scores and it almost just kind of feels like the haves and the have-nots or something. Like
Yes. Yeah.
and it just gives me kind of a kind of feeling. And
Mhm.
so, my biggest thing was it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter like content creators or whoever, these people aren't going to have a higher weighted score. But my other thing is my kind of prize possession in the app is this feature called Friends with Benefits. I don't know if you
All
saw it
right.
or figured it out yet.
Let's have a look. I have
Right,
my critic list open.
right.
So let's look for is it this? Oh, this is
It's
it, right?
FWB. You see that down?
FWB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the friends with benefits. Now you only have one person right now, which is me. So you're seeing my
Okay.
score, right? So, and this is
Okay.
actually still kind of a decent example just because you have two separate things, right? So
I
if you
see.
had, let's say, 20 people in your friends with benefits, the goal would be to add any people that you feel like are like-minded or that you vibe with, that you're on the same, that you agree with, essentially, typically, if that's how
Right.
you want to build out your friends with benefits. But basically you add them to it. And so any piece of entertainment that you look at anywhere on the app, you will have a
Yeah.
friends with benefits score. So you'll see an audience rating and a friends with benefits score on anything you look at. So I think that that's the solution.
That is awesome. I absolutely love that. I am curious. Um, let me jump back into that a bit for a
Yeah.
second. So this would sort of be like the you have your following, say, let's take example Instagram, for example. You have
Mhm.
your friends following and you're just kind of watching your friends opinions of
Right.
said content or movie. That's
Right.
awesome. Okay, so that you do sort of have this like double tier. You have like the general
Right.
audience score, but it's not based on the establishment's approved people.
Right.
It's who you the opinions you value. That's really
Yeah.
cool. I saw that and I didn't like register
It
that
wasn't sure.
FWB. Yeah.
Right, and
Okay.
it's more listed out on your profile, and we're actually currently, so it'll probably drop this week. We have not had a how-to slash like very specific, like these are the features page in the app. So that's coming
Yeah.
this week, more of a breakdown for everybody. But it's a new feature. It's
Gotcha.
nothing that anyone's done before, as far as I know of. I've never seen it anywhere,
Right.
and I think that it's going to become very beneficial once people figure it out. And, like I said, it's like you don't necessarily have to build it out that specific way where it's full of everybody that agrees with you. You could throw in, a handful of people that you typically disagree with so that you
Right.
end up with this balance in there of like, and you can click into it and see what each of these people think individually as well to see, oh,
Mhm.
okay, like X person might have thrown off this score a little bit.
Right. Okay, that's amazing. I love that.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about I wanted to ask you about something very specific. Let me see. Yes, I remember what it was. Okay. So I found this pretty interesting.
Yeah,
You were mentioning, you get to follow people in your, say, friends with benefits who are maybe someone is not of the same, like, they're not in the same bubble that you might be in.
Right.
But I noticed this feature in the reviews.
Hmm.
Let's see if I can find a review. That let's go to Sean real quick.
Can
I
I
noticed there
say
was a
something really quick about this guy? Sorry,
absolutely,
this specific
absolutely.
guy, I kid you not, he signed up yesterday at around 6 or 7 o'clock. He is currently sitting at around 300 and something reviews since
Wow.
yesterday. He's been going nonstop for less than 24 hours.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah,
that. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
He's just
Yeah,
popping off.
I was reading some of his reviews and I was like, "Oh, he's probably been there since the beginning cuz it was
Nope.
like he was going in." But
Yeah,
okay, that is amazing. Sean,
yeah,
if you're seeing this, that's really cool
right.
that you are so engaged. I love that. Um but I did notice like in the review section there
Mhm.
is a political bias
Yeah.
area. Is this how did you come about deciding that this was something you wanted to include in the reviews?
Well, I initially wanted to add these themes, and you can see them even on the mass review. You can see what everybody thinks and how they pull together as well,
Mhm.
which was on that previous page as well. You can access it, and it'll actually tell you how many people have reviewed, let's say, language, violence, nudity, all of those things
I
as
see.
well.
Okay.
So you can see it in either place for an individual or for the whole, just everyone in the app. But
I see.
essentially, yeah, if you scroll down just a hair, there's a thing that's right there. Themes actually, it was up.
Themes?
Yep,
Oh,
it was
right here?
slightly up. Yep, right there. So that'll
Okay.
be the breakdown, and then if you click into it, it'll actually give you a full breakdown of where they sit on the scale. I don't know if they're yeah.
Ah,
So you
like
see,
okay.
and it'll tell you like 9 voters, and it'll show what
Mhm.
every single person who had an opinion on that thought.
That's
So
amazing.
coming down to the political bias thing, essentially, I was like, what are the main tenets that people are looking for when they want to see a very quick breakdown? They want to see if
Mhm.
there's violence in there, if there's nudity, if it's family friendly. I've actually had
Mhm.
people ask me to put more of these sliders in here because it's actually an active slider that you slide when you're doing your review if you're leaving one.
I
Um,
see.
but basically I was kind of thinking about it, I'm like, everything has gotten so hyper politicized, and a lot of people
Yeah.
just want to go to the movies and they want a popcorn flick. They want to sit there and have fun and not think about the real world. They want to escape for just a little bit.
Yeah.
And and this isn't, I didn't make this to target the left or to target the right or to go for any particular group, because I mean, right now I will say, I mean, it's kind of obvious, like, the left primarily dominates entertainment. It's just a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we could be looking at 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, and it could be the complete opposite. I mean, it really,
Mhm.
it's just, you could roll a dice. And so, with building it out this way, I wanted to be able to give people that granular choice to say, hey, it's leaning a little bit this way, it's leaning a little bit that way. And I've actually been talking to some podcasters who are like, it was really interesting. I was doing my review and I was reviewing this movie from the 90s, and I was like, I think I need to mark this as a right wing movie.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they were like, holy crap, like, I didn't think about that. And
Right.
and so it's making people also think a little bit different about the things that they consume. I'm hyper focused on
Mhm.
propaganda in general. Hence, this is
Yes.
one of our shirts. It's by an
Ooh.
artist that I work with. It says obey, but it's basically about how the most basic form of mind control is repetition. And
Mm.
I'm working with a lot of counterculture artists, and I also want to prop up a lot of art and content creators, or creators in general. I mean, and we
Yeah.
actually have a lot of custom created art in our backgrounds and banners and stuff that you can decorate your
Right.
profile with. I wanted to kind of harken back to the MySpace days, but
Gotcha.
so, anyways, I wanted to get some of these guys on board that were very much kind of pushing the boundaries. This guy, Dave Denzara, really good guy.
Mm.
He should honestly be on the mouth of like every counterculture person right now. And because of
Gotcha.
the art he's creating, he's just really doing some cool stuff, and he's
That's
pushing
awesome.
back a little bit. So
Right.
that was kind of my thought also with adding this political bias meter, is for people to be like, hey, actually I felt like this was really trying to push an agenda on me.
Right. That's cool because I feel like when it comes to a lot of reviews nowadays, um a lot of people go to YouTube straight
Right.
up to find
Hmm.
out is the they come here to find the political bias, to be honest,
Right.
before watching the movie, but you don't have that feature explicitly listed on any platform really. I mean,
Right.
in a sense, you kind of do have the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes will kind of tell you,
Right.
is this a left? Because when it's really good, it's like, oh, there's a
Right.
lot of propaganda in there, and if it's
Right.
terrible, don't watch this movie. It's embedded in there. So I think it's wonderful that you're just being forthright about that.
Right.
Ib Henriksen asks, is Sound of Freedom still showing a low Rotten Tomatoes rating? Yes, it is. As of today, I did have a chance to check it out, and it is sitting at 58% with the critic score, 99% with the audience score. There are some, now I will say there are some positive reviews on there. So
Mhm.
they're like, but they're scattered in a lot of negative reviews. And I mean, the negative reviews are negative.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, this was mild. They're like, this was terrible acting, terrible whatever. Did
Right.
you have a chance to see Sound of Freedom?
I didn't. It came out right when we were going into beta for the app,
I see.
and I was all hands on deck. Actually, just recently with seeing the creator and Dumb Money, it has been some of the first times that I've been back in the theater since we started.
Oh
It-
wow. Okay.
I've been watching stuff at home, more of like TV shows, anything that I can get bite sized. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I did miss it. Now a lot. Well, I say a lot. We've got about 10 people in the app that have reviewed it so far. I think it's sitting at like a 80 something. It's in our most
Right.
excellent rating area. So
Gotcha. Let me check that out real quick.
yeah, sure.
And I'm curious about the rating scale. What inspired you to have the sort of um the five, the five
The
rankings,
bars.
the
Yeah.
bars? Does Rotten Tomatoes have a feature like that, or am I tripping? I don't
No,
really use it
absolutely
that
not.
much. Okay,
Rotten
gotcha.
Tomatoes is abysmal with the rating scale. I think
Okay,
it is extremely broken, and it's why I created this way.
I
Rotten
see.
Tomatoes, basically, it's you're either a solid tomato or a splat, which is, I mean, that
Mm,
in what area of life is there no gray area? I mean,
right.
seriously, we're
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah.
So with this scale, my thought was that let's go with a 100-point scale, but let's make people think a little differently, right? Because most people, when
Mm-hmm.
they think on a 100-point scale, they think, grade school. Yeah, they
Right.
think, anything below a 70 is bad. But I
Right.
can tell you that even if the audience score is sitting at a decent, which is like a 50, basically, that middle range,
Yeah.
think about it. If 50% of people like a thing, there's a strong chance that you're going to like it as well,
Exactly.
or at least
Yeah.
a 50% chance. And
Yeah.
so I wanted people to kind of look at that 100-point scale a little bit differently. It's like in that middle, it doesn't, decent is pretty self explanatory, right? But if it
Mm-hmm.
had a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, it would be a splat.
I see. Okay. That is very true. Actually, Sound of Freedom has a splat. It sits at 58%. And this
Mhm.
is based on the critics. So even just like the fact that the audience score doesn't really weigh in into that like green splat, it's just based
Right.
purely on the critics. And then it's slightly above 50%, but it's still rotten, is really tragic.
Right.
And I think like over the past decade or so, um we have to acknowledge that like Rotten Tomatoes has had a, I guess, say in what producers think people want to see, and kind
Totally.
of the sludge, as a critical drinker. I don't know if you follow Critical Drinker.
Yeah.
The sludge that has flown has come from these warped, lopsided reviews. I wanted to ask you, I'm going to sort of dive into the Hollywood strike for a bit.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns that in the coming year there's going to
Mhm.
be kind of a lack of content, and therefore a lack of people reviewing stuff? Is that a concern for you guys, or not really?
I think I think we'll still have people pretty active. I've honestly been surprised. Now we're going to have multiple different types of users, right?
Mhm.
But I think that a lot of people have been surprising me, and they've even just been going and watching older things because the app exists. They're like, "Hey,
Exactly.
Criticless is out. Like, I want to get a refresher on this and review it." And they've
Right.
just been going in and being like, "Oh man, like no one's reviewed this yet. I want to go and talk about it." And they'll go in there.
Exactly.
So I think during that lull, it's a perfect chance for us to capitalize on quality art that was created
Hmm.
in a time before things have turned into the sludge. And
Exactly.
I most of my favorite things came out, honestly. There was a bubble back in the early 2000s where the indie scene exploded, and it
Mm.
was just banger after banger. And I mean, there were just so many quality things put out by these unknown directors who now are have turned into very big directors.
Right.
And back then you look at their content and it was so much different than it is now.
Yeah.
And even just so much less political. Actually, a perfect example is I watched some of your review of Glass Onion,
Yes.
and that was done by Ryan Johnson. Now, my very favorite Ryan Johnson film is actually his very first film, which is called Brick, and I think it's a
Okay.
masterpiece.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. But
I will check it out.
yeah, it's excellent. But honestly, after he did his Star Wars movie, I kind of turned on Ryan Johnson, and I was like, I'm not about this guy anymore,
Ooh.
because he just got so political, and
Mm.
I've kind of hit a boiling point with most things where it has to be really, really, really good
Yeah.
and have politics injected in it, or an opinion, like a very hard slant for me to really care about it.
Got you. Yeah, I have you seen Looper, by the way?
Yeah, I love Looper. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Looper was one of those one of those movies that really made me consider moving into the sort of like media and arts field. By the way, I
right,
studied audio production in college, so I
awesome,
had a bit of a dabbling into the behind the scenes world of film.
right,
CC says, I personally think Hollywood is simply a monopoly, and that's never good for free society to allow one industry monolithically control the narrative of an entire industry.
right.
Yes, I agree. I live in Hollywood and I kind of see the attitudes that people have here very hoity toity. Very much like everyone else in other states don't know as much as they do.
Right.
Do you think Hollywood is going to become sort of do you think we're going to diffuse the production power across maybe the US and the globe and Hollywood will no longer be the epicenter?
I think that we could. I
Okay.
think it would be very difficult. I don't know if it'll happen. I know that there are a lot
Mhm.
of individuals that really want to do something like that. Actually, a person that surprised me that was talking about really wanting to do that was Zachary Levi, who's
Yes.
known from Chuck and Shazam movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And but there are other individuals too. But I do have concerns where it's like, okay, well, now like the Daily Wire, for example, they have their own
Oh, yeah.
outlet, and I have nothing against that, and I think that they should be allowed to do that. I think it's good for them, but also they have a very strong political opinion, and I think that while that is fine and healthy, and for they're able to do that if they want, I think we need some really like solid middle ground people who are just like, we are creating art for art's sake, and not even to be hoity-toity, but for people
Mhm.
to just have a vision and to execute on that vision. But what it's going to take is it's going to take money,
Yeah.
as it always does, and it's going to take a lot of really motivated people. And
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to see that happen. And a lot of why I wanted to create Criticless was just so that we could grow to a point in which, when there's, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in here, and it's like, we can be like, look, like this is what real people think. This isn't what pretentious, overinflated views of, just everything. It's not a group of those type of people. This is just regular folks and what they think.
That is awesome. I love that. I think it's just perfect timing, especially considering like the fact that um things have not been doing things have not been going great for like big companies like Disney, for example,
No.
Lucasfilm. And I think a lot of producers are ready to just finally cut the CRAP
Yeah.
and listen to the people who are going to quote unquote vote with their dollars.
Right.
Did Zachary Levi say he wanted to move things to Austin, or was he
So
just
it
yeah,
that's part of why he initially moved out there, I think, but he was going through a lot of other personal things. I don't know if he kind of abandoned that mission, but
yeah,
I've heard him speak multiple times, and he talked about how his initial reason for moving to that area was because he wanted to kind of start up his own mini Hollywood and start to try and produce things and create. And I mean,
yeah,
more power to him. I really think more and more folks need to, like you said, they need to speak with their money. These other investors and people that are against what's happening right now, and they
yeah,
need to, whether it's him or other folks, start reaching out and being like, what can we do? We need to, we need to create this other side of the society that
yeah.
is more in line with real folks.
Absolutely. And speaking of like monopolies and breaking things down, we've had a lot of franchises rebooted. Um, but recently there was a new movie that came out that is the background uh for this live
Right.
stream. The creator, original IP. I'm excited to get to hear your opinion about it
Right.
because, yeah.
I know. Yeah, I'm excited about yours too because it sounds like I'm curious if we are on different ends of the spectrum. Now, I mean, my review is on Criticlist. You can see it,
Okay,
and
let's check it out.
I gave it a fairly high review. I'm in the most
Okay.
excellent range. I
Mm.
was not expecting to give it that high of a rating,
Mm-hmm.
and this movie kind of it was heavy. It was hard
Yeah.
to watch,
Yeah.
and but it had some interesting points to make. It was a bit philosophical. I don't tend to lean towards the pro AI side of the conversation most of the time, especially
Mm-hmm.
because of a lot of the artists that I work with and have been talking to over the past year or so creating this app.
Right.
And a lot of people are just really scared they're going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
And so I mean, and even just in the tech side of things, where it's like, oh, okay, well, I spent a lot of money making this app and put a lot of effort into it. And our main goal was creativity. We
Right.
broke a lot of rules making this app. And I had to really push my team and say, like, when they create something, come back and be like, no, like, get more ridiculous. Like, make this not look as plain Jane, give it some character. Everything is just so sterile now. And just even when you
Yeah.
look at architecture, art across the board has just gotten very bland. And I'm really worried, though, that AI could almost worsen that and
Mm-hmm.
just continue to double down on where art is currently instead of it just all depends on how people decide to use AI. But I've
Oh,
already
yeah.
left the conversation of this movie. But so as a whole, though, I was going
Yeah.
into this movie very hesitant, was not expected to be won over by the AI. And by the end of it, I was like, man, you actually kind of made me feel something for AI. I never considered an approach in which you could look at AI and say, well, if AI was created in man's image, right, and introduced into the world, then could it not be possible for AI to possibly not want to destroy us like sci-fi has told us forever, which is still tends to be my position on it. But maybe what if AI just wanted to assimilate and just wanted to become more human and wanted to not destroy us and actually just live among us? And it's an
Yeah.
interesting perspective, but it's not necessarily wholly new, but
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and thank you so much for breaking
yeah.
down your opinion. I love that you said in your review that it reminded you of like a Neil Blomkamp movie, District 9, which is
Yeah.
exactly what I felt. Um, and I also just want to touch on his other movie, what was it, Gran Turismo, which I recently saw.
I still haven't seen
Um,
it.
no pressure, like it's
Yeah.
chill, it's great. I loved it, but it's like it's not gonna like change your life or anything
Right.
like that. But I wanted to kind of say that maybe let me give my rating
Yeah,
in
yeah.
real time. Let's give
Let's
it a
hear
little
it.
bit of a demonstration plus a real
Right.
review.
There you go.
I love the art. I love the art, but the man, I was not a fan of the humanization of AI.
Really.
Um, I was not a fan. So if I could, what should I give it? I'm gonna give it a decent. Let's give it a
Yeah.
decent.
Hey, and I don't think that's a bad place.
Love the visuals.
Right. It's a gorgeous
Actually,
movie.
I'm gonna go ahead. I think I wanted to give it a 60%, and I'm on 57. So
Yeah.
it's in the rad territory. Just
Right.
one
Lower
bar
rad.
removed. Yeah, yeah. Doesn't quite hit most excellent just for the aspect of giving the AI incredibly human qualities.
Right.
Which I found what it wasn't quite compelling to me. And mind
Yeah.
you, I'm scared to turn into like the Allison Sweeney character in the future, but I
Right.
am very like anti like humanizing AI.
Right.
But I do love, have you heard of the franchise Detroit Become Human? The video
Yes.
game
Yeah. I
franchise?
played it. Or what? Wait. No, I own it, but I've yet to play it. So
Okay.
yeah, I've played their
Gotcha.
other games, but not that specific one.
Yeah. Oh, I love that company so much.
Yeah, they're great. Heavy Rain was phenomenal.
Heavy
But
Rain, really good.
yeah.
I loved their, if you get a chance to play the game, the way they present the arguments of the androids is what they refer to in the game.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more compelling because they're not trying to, I mean, they do humanize them, but
Hmm.
it's in a very logical way.
Right.
of would you save this human's life or would you, you know, it just asks you very, very valid questions because you're playing in the position of the androids. But when
Right.
it came to the creator, I didn't quite find any reason for the AI apart from the fact that they didn't want, spoiler alert by the way. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Going into it, but
And you can actually do spoiler reviews as well, which will blur it out for people. So
love that. Okay. But yeah, I just felt like they immediately just lumped on these sort of what would you call it? Human qualities
hmm
without really demonstrating the logical process to get to their humanity. We're just kind of
right,
thrust into this war. Oh, the AI are just purely good. We didn't really have a chance to see them be cold and heartless and orderly.
right,
They already had their world built up.
right.
Um, and all we had to do was just imagine that the girl, again, trying to not go into
Alfie. Yeah,
Alfie. I don't want to spoil it too much, but
right,
Alfie was a child in every way a child is a child.
right,
And I didn't quite feel the transition from robot to human. It was just immediately you're met with this extremely human character that you have no other choice but to empathize with.
right. You're kind of forced to empathize.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Anyway, so whenever you do get a chance to play Detroit Become
yeah,
Human, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I still
yeah.
listen to the soundtrack to this day, so I have a heart, you know, like I
Right.
can be swayed. But anyway, so let's get into this review. I'm gonna use Criticlist for the very first time, guys, and
Awesome.
review the creator. So I would say graphic language. You know, I watch so much Kitchen Nightmares and Gordon Ramsay that I kind of forget if there was there
Right. I
any
don't.
language.
It wasn't that bad, and I mean, it's got a PG-13 rating, so there was definitely no f bombs or anything. You know,
Okay.
I think it was fairly mild.
Oh, okay. I think Alfie did say the a-hole word at
Yeah,
some point.
there was a couple coarse words in there, but they were in that PG-13 territory.
That's right. Okay. And the violence, it was tricky. It wasn't a lot of
Right.
gore. It
No,
wasn't like but it
it's war violence, but it's
w-
not graphic war violence.
exactly. I'm gonna sit it right in the middle because it is action packed, but
Right.
it's not a slasher or anything like that.
Yeah.
There was there nudity?
I don't
No,
think so.
there was no nudity.
Right. And so actually just for a learning sake,
Yeah,
you'll see if you don't click on it at all, it won't register your score at all. So if you say none, you still do have to click on it. Just
I see.
FYI.
Gotcha.
A lot of people haven't quite figured that one out yet, but it was like we didn't. That was a hard one where we're like we don't want to force it to say none, and then people are
Exactly.
saying none when it's not. So
Right. Okay. Love that. Thank you for the heads up.
yeah,
And okay, political bias. Oof. Ooh.
yeah.
This
This
is the
is
territory.
Yeah, I struggled. I really struggled right there. Because
Mm,
the war aspect, we actually that podcast I was recently on or the live stream YouTube, we talked about it a little bit and there was one guy that was like, "Oh, this is like super anti-right, you know, whatever." And I was like, I don't really know. I'm not sure that it was more of anti military industrial complex. And now
right.
you could consider that anti-right, but I also know a lot of like right-wing people that are very much against the war machine. So
Exactly. Yeah.
that's kind of a toss up. It's kind of a perspective thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you because it was, you know, again, spoiler, I don't want to give out too much, but the US was sort of the
The
let's
big
say
bad.
the bad side, but it wasn't specific as to what side of the US. It was just
Right.
the
Well,
country as a whole, and I totally agree. Not everyone on the right supports the war machine type vibe,
right.
but it still had that. It reminds me of another movie that I saw recently where Avatar. It had that
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
Avatar situation where military, like an overly done military. I don't know what
It,
you would call it.
it's almost like if the way that I kind of looked at it was it's like if we allowed the military industrial complex to get even fathoms more control than it already has to where it's literally just basically running the United States. That's what it felt
Yes,
like. It felt like our
exactly,
military was just running the country.
exactly.
And I
Yeah,
mean, they were being the world police to the nth degree.
exactly. Yeah, for that reason it's very hard, which is I guess a success for the creator because you're not really
Right.
able to gauge that. Um and there was nothing else necessarily that I could point to that had a binary. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna say none because I know just the subject matter as a whole is very. It was kind of progressive, but it
Right.
still didn't have a very explicit propaganda undertone
Right. That's
in
kind of how I felt.
my
And there
perspective.
wasn't any of that, the hyper progressive lexicon that we're typically getting with the buzzwords that are always getting thrown in our face.
Yes,
There wasn't
exactly.
any of that. They weren't preaching to you. It was just kind of like you can take this imagery how you want. And it
Yes,
very much was just imagery.
exactly. 100%. Yeah. Is it family friendly? Yeah.
Teenagers?
Teenagers, I would say slightly. Definitely not like Elemental at all. No Pixar,
Right.
nothing.
No.
But it's also not like a it's not on, the extreme scale. Again, there is a
Right.
lot of action, but it's what could I liken it to?
It's I mean, it's kind of like a honestly, if you've seen his previous film Rogue One, which was a Star Wars movie,
Yes.
it was kind of similar to that in a lot of ways, but it
Yes.
also left you feeling the way that you felt when you left Rogue One. So
Absolutely.
it's a heavy movie.
Right. So yeah, I would say slightly family friendly and maybe something you want to talk about, with your
Yeah.
kids because we are living in an age where AI is
Right.
becoming more and more prevalent. Is there a way to for me to return to this and add my review later? Or does this
So what you
yeah,
can do if you let's say that you like where you're at right now, you could
yeah.
submit it the way that it is currently, and then you
Okay.
can come back and you can edit and add any text or anything else that you want to add. So it'll just
Love that.
publish this current version and you can come back, oh, look at that, you got some badges.
Yay!
So yeah,
Okay.
we have some super cool achievements in here that have hooked a lot of people, um, which is fun. I gamified, and I'm a big video gamer, so
Yay.
I could not put these in here. And if you go to your profile, you can actually see them all. They're grayed out, and I put little riddles so you
Oh,
could
that's
maybe try
awesome.
and figure out how to get them and that sort of thing. So
Okay, let me have a little quick look. Oh, yay! I have
there you go.
Blaine
Yep.
there as a friend, and I have my 2 badges there.
Yeah.
That's really
And you can
cool.
click on
Cause
see all, and it'll show everything that we've got as well. It's pretty cool.
oh, wow, okay. Oh, so yeah, okay, so they're grayed out, and so
Yep.
we have something to aspire to.
Yep.
I'm invested. This is awesome. I
Awesome. And
love
yeah,
this.
you can click on them. They'll pop up a little riddle, and
Loneliness is underrated when you're the critic. Ooh. Wait, explain that one to me.
yeah. So a lot of these are the riddles don't always explain it. Now you'll kind of start to figure out a vibe as to how they work as you go along. But a lot of them don't explicitly tell you much at all. You'll kind of
I
just figure it
see.
out. And most of the things I made are fairly organic as you're interacting with the app. So, like this one, for example, the November 18th, 2115, that
Mhm.
date is very important. And you could potentially
Ooh.
Google that date. And if you find something, it might help lead you to figuring out how to get
I see. Oh, this is so cool. Oh my
it.
goodness. Lord Saruman.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Lord of the Rings ones have multiple people hyper fixated because they want all of them and they're all connected. But so we actually have groups in the app as well. So let's say like you wanted to start a group where you just discuss movies and stuff with people that listen to you and follow your work, and you could
Word.
publish in there and say, "Hey, I'm going live," or whatever the case may be, and everybody in the app could know if you're reviewing a movie or and so we have a lot of groups that are starting to become active. So some achievements might be related to groups and how many people are in the group, or all
Mhm.
sorts of different features throughout the app.
That's awesome. Oh, I see it. I see a create group feature there. Okay.
Yeah,
That's amazing. I love that. And thank you for that run through. Like that's
yeah,
incredibly helpful. I don't know if I did I read this comment? CC says absolutely the ideas coming out are not fresh and are done to the point of boredom. If I search
right,
Batman or any Marvel superhero, I see tons of iterations to the point where it's off the page. Yes, I
right.
think this was referring to when we were talking about like Disney and Lucasfilm, but 100%.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, it's kind of becoming nauseating. The only franchise I think I still look forward to is Spider-Man, especially the Miles Morales
Yeah.
work that they're creating. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it pretty well. I loved the first one. I adore that first movie. The second one, it was almost it felt like they doubled down a little bit too much to like the level of chaos, and it was just so
Yes.
busy. That art style is just so in your face, and I don't
Mhm.
dislike it. It's just they almost doubled down a little bit too much, and I was like, I f- it was just a whirlwind, like 100 miles an hour from start to finish, and
Yes.
so I
I
felt that movie
agree.
a little overwhelming. Also, they didn't. My biggest beef with that movie is that they didn't tell us that it was a part one of two parts, and the movie just ended in the middle of the movie after like 2.5 hours. So
Exactly. Same, same, same. I had to watch it, I had to watch it 3 times, because the first time I was like, "I have no idea what just happened. This is
right,
too much." I was overwhelmed. I was like, just, my mind was still
yeah,
processing everything, and then it ended. But I still was really blown away with the art style, and I look forward to the other half of
right,
what I thought we were gonna get. And then I wanted to. Did you have a chance to catch Dumb Money by any chance?
yeah. I watched it Monday, so I did see
Oh,
it. Yeah,
okay.
I have not
Love
reviewed it,
that.
but yeah, I did get to see it. So I knew you had talked
Okay.
about seeing it, so I was like, all right, can we might talk about it? I need to check it out. So
Oh,
I did get it.
okay. Well, I'm stoked that you did have a chance to see it because I
Yeah,
felt like the themes discussed in the movie were very much in line with uh what Criticless is sort of all about, and that's kind of bringing the power
yeah,
back to the people, right?
yeah.
What were your thoughts?
I still sit. There was a part of it that really rang true to me, like you said, and really resonated with what I'm doing, and that mindset. And it did tug on those strings for me. But as a whole, after the end of the movie, I was like, it was okay. Like it
Yeah.
didn't blow my mind. Like it
Mhm.
was a decent movie. Maybe even like you said, that lower rad tier for me. I
Yeah.
thought that it. And I mean, the thing is, it was so recent, and I'm very much on top of that news. I kept up with what was going on with
Right.
all of the GameStop stock and
Yeah.
the AMC and all of the things that were going on at the time. And my bigger thing with the movie was honestly that it was like this mild like PTSD moment of like, oh God, I don't
Mhm.
want to relive 2020, and you guys are making me right now.
Right, exactly. Oh man, with the masks and everything.
Dude, it was a lot. Like I said, it was like flashbacks, just like oh God.
I mean, yeah, I really did. I found it to be very cute. Like for the time I
Yeah,
was sitting there and watching it, maybe cute is the wrong word. It was just it made me chuckle. It made me,
yeah,
think, wow. But I loved the symbolism of how they used sort of the masks as a stifling, like a
yeah.
establishment stifling the people. Because whenever
Right.
someone, spoiler alert, um whenever someone would, try to challenge those in power, there's kind of this whole mask symbolism thing going on.
Right.
And I think that's one of the few movies that has this it's kind of it would, if I was to review it, it would be slightly left,
Right. Same.
but
But
it didn't suck up to like the COVID superpowers. I don't know.
no,
What do
that
you
was
think?
that surprised me about it, honestly. I was talking with my wife after seeing it, and I was like I was kind of surprised because I felt like the people creating it were definitely more left leaning, but they also knew their audience and what this content
Yes.
was about. And it's like the people that were at the core of the stonk, movement,
Yeah.
were not these hard progressive folks. I mean,
Yes.
they would have been like 15 years ago during Occupy Wall Street, but something happened. Like
Yes.
somebody broke those folks, and
Exactly.
now that wasn't the audience they were catering towards. So I feel like they were intelligently very careful to not insult the people that were a part of this movement, and I really respected them for that.
That's absolutely right. I love this GameStop character,
Oh, he's so good.
um, Shailene Woodley, Paul Dano. I don't know how to pronounce
Yes.
his last name.
It's
Dano?
Dano. Yeah, Paul
Dano.
Dano.
Okay.
He is excellent. That
Yeah.
guy, I'll watch him in just about anything. And
Hmm.
he's he's got a presence on screen. He's an odd dude, and he really is good at playing odd dudes.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I also noticed this water cooler. Is that sort of the friends with benefits thing?
No, this is
Or
something totally different. This is my other
okay.
claim to fame. This was literally like my wife was trying to help me solve a problem, and she
Mhm.
helped me to come up with this idea. But basically, I was really struggling with the fact that um, on platforms like this, right? You know, you've got all these people reviewing things, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, but let's say I'm watching, name any TV show, right? Like I'm just watching some TV show that's on, and let's just say the live action One Piece show that just came out, right? And I want to talk
Yeah.
about One Piece, but I don't
Yeah.
want to leave a review yet, and I don't just want to talk under someone's review, like some random
Mhm.
person's review. So the point of the water cooler is basically that think of it being like a Reddit thread for
Yeah.
every single piece of media. So you can just go to Dumb Money and you can talk about it. And then you can tag people, you can share a post to your feed and just be like, "Hey, did anybody see this yet? What do you think?" Or it's an easy way to go in and banter and talk about specific pieces of entertainment without getting, stuck underneath someone else's review where other people might not see it.
That's awesome. This is really cool because sometimes
Thanks.
that's the mental space I will be in. I'm
Right.
not ready to leave an in-depth essay, even
Right.
though I might be, brewing one in like for the creator, for example. But
Right.
like for dumb money, I thought this, like I said, I thought this was cute. I'm just gonna leave that, and that
Right.
will be my first water cooler moment. And
Right. And so you
um,
can share that. And then what you can do is after it posts, you can
yeah.
then share that to your feed if you wanted other people to see it and interact with it. Right. So
Ooh.
you can actually just now that's an actual link. So you can share it outside
Okay.
of the app. But if you
Gotcha.
click on the other button, the little arrow,
Right.
then you can comment on top of it, or this is similar to Twitter. So
I
basically,
see.
you can just do like a repost, or you can say like any thoughts, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and say any thoughts. Ooh. But yeah, I mean, this is really, really in depth. I love
Thanks.
that you've put a lot of thought into the platform, and the more I explore it, the more I'm realizing it is very social. Like
Very
it's not just a top down. This is what I think of this movie, and bam, and
right.
everyone disperses after that. It
Exactly.
really encourages communication and engagement. So I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blaine, so far for everything that you've shared and
Yeah.
for introducing me to Criticless and for being bold enough to challenge the what would you call it?
We can call it the establishment. I'm
The
fine.
establishment.
I will challenge the establishment. And
Yeah.
I mean, look, you got to be a madman to challenge the establishment in general. To step out on a limb and build something like this, you have to be a madman. So that's just how I'm approaching it. I'm just out of my mind, And you've got to take risks. And at this point, we're looking at a culture that is just eroding underneath our feet,
Yeah.
and it's gonna take people taking big risks, not
Yeah.
just a little bit of one. It's going to be stepping out and doing something that makes you really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, I'm hoping that in creating a platform like this that is more openly free speech, and essentially, if you're not breaking the law, you're not going to get kicked off this platform.
Right.
And that is our main goal with how I want to handle it. And I'm hoping that I can empower other people to feel comfortable in a space like this. And
Mhm.
we also promoting these artists as well. So it's like we're running like all of our merch out of house. We're printing everything locally. I'm working with all of these artists, and it's like we kind of talked about it. I'm like, look, if I'm going to take the risk, I'm going to take it across the board with the whole company. I'm
Right.
going to work with other people who are taking risks, like these artists who are just trying to make money creating art because we need it.
Yeah.
And so taking the risk with them, and I think it's really important.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that is very inspirational for me as well. I'm wishing you guys all the best. You will
Thank
see me on the platform for anyone
you.
who is
Awesome.
watching and you're interested in joining Criticless. Um, Blaine, what would be the best way for them to get on the app as fast as possible?
Yeah, just you can the fastest possible, you can just go to criticalist.com and you can set up your login and everything through the website, or you can go in the upper right hand corner, you'll see get the app, and it'll
Mhm.
direct you to whatever app store you're at, or you can just search it on Google or Apple. But so and we have both versions of the platform, so you can do it with or without the web now. And you've already were fully logged in and set up, but just so everyone
Right.
knows, this is something that I'm prefacing. I have taken this platform, as you can tell, very seriously. But another thing that we do is we do ask for your phone number when you first sign up. We are not keeping them. We are not saving them or your information. The point is to stop bots. We already have had a heavy
Mhm.
bot attack where people were trying to get into the platform, and I didn't want to make an easy way for people to create bots that could go in and do things like review bombing. And
Yeah.
so we've hyper protected our system, and that's why I'd ask for your phone number, but we're not keeping it or anything like that. So no worries. But
That's great. Yeah. Thanks
yeah,
for explaining that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm starting to learn as I talk about this more. There are certain concerns that people have, and I think when you talk about the free speech community, everyone is a little burned and they're a
Oh, yeah.
little nervous of tech. And I'm not big tech. We're not big tech. We're just regular folks. And I've implemented these things to try and protect the platform and to keep the integrity of what we have made. And so I don't want any reason for outside sources to be like, oh, you can't trust this. This is, unreputable because they're not supported by, X number of giant donors and bigwigs, that are
Right.
funding this thing. Right. And
Exactly.
so I hope that that's comforting to people.
Yeah, that absolutely is. Last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What movie are you looking forward to for the rest for what we have remaining for the year? What movie are you looking forward to?
Honestly, the rest of this year is surprisingly disappointing. Now, I will say this. Hold on, I don't want to get the name of the movie wrong. So
Yeah.
let's see. I was going to look on Criticless, and well, now I'm trying to think of who's in this movie. There's a new film coming out in November, and my brain's not working. It's got Nicolas Cage in it. I don't know
Oh,
if you've seen it.
is it The Retirement Plan or no?
No, that's no,
That's something else.
it's okay. Hold on, I'll have it in about 2 seconds here. I'm on our
Yeah.
site. Um, well, I'm struggling to my internet's not cooperating.
No
Long
worries.
story short, Nicolas Cage has a new movie coming out, and the whole idea of the movie is that he's a regular guy and he starts showing up in everyone's dreams. And literally
Whoa.
everyone all over the world is dreaming about Nicolas Cage, and he looks very odd. He's got like he's bald on top, but he has hair all the way around, and he just looks a lot older. But so we're getting these two versions of Nick Cage where there's this like full Nick Cage that's showing up in everyone's dreams acting insane. And then there's a real world Nick Cage who's just this like mild mannered regular guy who's struggling with the fact that everyone is dreaming about him and they don't know why.
Wow. That is crazy. Okay, I
Yeah.
haven't heard of it yet, but I will keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah. I wish
Um,
I could remember the name of it.
gotcha. Any hopes for Napoleon?
I am not gonna hold my breath, but I'm fairly excited. I think it could be
Okay,
cool.
cool.
It's I mean, we've got a good director attached. We've got good, actors in it, and it could be great. But I'm not a huge biopic history film type of person most of the time.
Yeah.
Uh, eh, so I could either love it or like Oppenheimer and be blown away. Like I was not expecting it. I thought Oppenheimer was phenomenal. I went in with very low expectations.
Mhm.
Um, so it could be a hit or miss, for me
Gotcha.
personally. What about you? Anything
I
you're really excited
am
about?
particularly excited about Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the Hunger Games
Really?
movie. Yeah. But I feel like I'm gonna be disappointed. I'm excited because I'm a fan of the Hunger Games
Okay.
series, but I do anticipate that it might not be 100% great. I am
Right.
excited to see the Marvels because it looks terrible. And I
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
yeah.
nervous. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big Marvel junkie from way, way back. I've got like stacks and stacks of way too much money worth of comic books. So I will see anything and everything Marvel, but it's gotten to the point where I went from praising everything they made to now being like, it's probably going to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not a good place to be in for a company, like
Right.
Marvel, but anyway,
Right.
thank you so much, Blaine.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time to just have a conversation about Criticless and,
Yeah.
appreciate what you're doing. The platform is awesome. Again, for anyone who's watching, I am not this is not a sponsored live stream. I just genuinely am intrigued by what's going on with Criticless and how they're going to, in the future, shape culture, shape the way we look at movies, shape the feedback loop between producers and audiences. And I'm excited for the future. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Blaine, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
And thank you everyone for tuning in as well. Cece says kind of like a Matrix meets Being John Malkovich type of movie. Oh, is that in
Yeah.
reference to
Oh,
the Nicolas Cage one?
yes, it's called Dream Scenario, by the way. I finally figured it out. Yes.
Perfect.
Dream Scenario.
Okay, dream scenario.
So we
All
didn't
right,
leave you hanging.
guys. Absolutely. We have a nice little bow on everything.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you very, very, very soon with some cool stuff. All right. Bye bye for now.